Welcome back, Canisius College. This is hashtag Griffs Sports. I'm Kyle Ferrara. Next to me is Brandon Rudd. We hope you all had a good spring break. We've got a lot to dive into. There's a lot going on in the world of Griffs Sports. But first, we've got to start out with hockey and men's basketball. They reached unprecedented heights for their programs.
Definitely. I mean, hockey went to the NCAA national tournament and basketball went to the CIT tournament. It was a very big boost for this area.
First time ever that hockey's been in the NCAA tournament. First time in 17 years that the men's basketball program has played a playoff game. I sat down with the outgoing sports editor from the Griffin, Rich Longino, and also the incoming sports editor, Jordan LaBarber, to talk a little bit about those two teams and what to look ahead for next year.
I'm here in the Griffin office with outgoing sports editor Rich Longino and incoming sports editor Jordan LaBarber, and we're going to talk about hockey and basketball now. Both had extremely successful seasons when compared to years past, and let's start with hockey. They went to the NCAA tournament, and years ago, before Coach Dave Smith even got here, this program was a mess. Rich, can you tell us a little bit about where they're at?
Dave Smith has done a great job of recruiting. That's the main reason this program has been turned around. It's kind of amazing they've had so much success this year without guys like Corey Conacher and Vince Scarcella, but they really found a groove late in the year, and this program is really on the upswing and is one of the more exciting athletic teams on campus right now.
Could you tell us a little bit about the problems that they had before he got here?
Well, like when they had Corey, they did have the high-end skill, like best player in the league, but they were not a deep team in years past. But this year he was able to roll 4 lines, Dave was, and the defense was solid, goaltending was solid. They got more consistent goaltending this year from Capobianco, and that was the main reason of their success this year.
So, Jordan, what do you think this success did for the morale of the school?
I think it did a lot. I think seeing the commemorative issues going throughout campus and being able to watch them play on ESPN3 and the NCAA tournament was really a treat. And I think it's just building blocks and in great position going into the future, definitely.
A lot of you talked about the future, so do you think that you can expect them to repeat what they did this year, next year?
I think so. I mean, the key cogs on the team are all juniors. Capobianco, leading scorer Gibbons. Hopefully Taylor Law comes back strong next year. That'll give them a big boost. There's no reason why they can't repeat.
And I probably like to think, if they get this new arena deal with the Sabres downtown, I think that'll do leaps and bounds for the program too, recruiting wise. Bringing players in, especially coming off a championship season. I feel like it's all happening right at the perfect time.
And the fact that Conacher's in the NHL right now and lighting it up helps too.
Yeah, you'd have to think it would. And Coach Smith has done such a great job recruiting anyway. This can only be a benefit for him in the future. Right. Now, he's somebody who has had his success here. And on the basketball side of things, you'll see a coach from a small school have success, get to the tournament, and then a big-name school will want to go get him. Do you guys, either of you think that a big-name hockey school might come after Coach Smith?
It's a possibility. He went to Ohio State. I really think he really likes it here, though. I'm not sure he really wants to leave. I guess it'll depend on the offer if he gets one. But I think his heart is with Canisius right now, and I don't think he'll want to leave, even if he does get an offer. So.
All right, now let's switch gears and we'll recap basketball really quickly. We would have talked about this before spring break, ideally, but not being on campus. So they were in the CIT tournament. I talked about this with Nick Veronica earlier. That's not the biggest name tournament, but being in the postseason is great for the program, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think Coach Barron's mission all year was getting more fans out, and he always talks about building a program, turning around programs, what he's done every school he's been to. And yeah, they didn't get to the NCAA tournament this year, but to get to the postseason in year one is absolutely a great achievement.
On one hand, though, it still seems like a lot of fans didn't recognize what they did. So do you think going into next year that fans are going to be there?
Yeah, I think on one hand, you have to be a little critical of the fans for not coming out. The players are doing a lot. They're doing their part. They're winning games. On the other hand, I think something that we do have to be aware of is that it's going to take time. Yeah, they started winning this year, but there's 3 years of students here who have seen nothing but losing basketball. And to expect, I think, sellouts every night just in 1 year take a program from 0 to the top, I think that's asking a little much, but I do think if they continue success, I feel it'd be natural progression to become basketball school.
Well, you'd like to think they continue that success, but they're losing some key pieces in Isaac Sosa and Harold Washington. And obviously, Billy's going to have to step up his scoring, but who else on this roster, maybe an incoming freshman, is really going to have to step up next year?
Well, a lot of it, I think, can revolve around how good these redshirt guys are. It's the same thing that happened this year. We had some redshirts that came out. They were a little more seasoned. I mean, Sosa was a senior, and Freddie was a senior. But we got a lot of seniors. We got Dominic Rainey, redshirts that, they're going to have to step up next year. They have to fill these spots. And then you got the freshman redshirts, too. So Jermaine Johnson, Phil Valenti. And then a wild card, I think, is Kevin Bleeker. Coach Browder used to tell me when he recruited Bleeker that he was the best player he's ever recruited internationally. He didn't really perform at that level in his freshman season, but coming back, I think if he has that, if he makes that impact, it could go leaps and bounds.
So, what are your predictions then for next season? Do you think they'll be right at the same spot, competing for a spot in the CIT, or are they going to take the next step?
I think it's tough. I wouldn't even guarantee a CIT. I think it's hard to say because, like I said, there's so many wild cards. You are losing two of your top scorers. You're losing Harold Washington, which you can't say enough about Harold, and you're losing Isaac, who just shoots the heck out of the ball. But I think they could be as good as one of the better teams in the MAC, competing with Niagara for the championship. I can also see it going to where they maybe take a step back after losing those players and have to actually keep recruiting and building onto this year.
So, last question before we wrap things up. Which team has the better chance of repeating this year's success?
I think for me, it would be hockey. I think they have more guys coming back from the championship team than on the flip side, basketball. Harold is such a big piece to lose. I think hockey has a better chance, and there's a little more parity in Atlantic hockey than there is in the MAC. I feel so.
Jordan?
I would probably agree. I'd say hockey, slight edge, but Billy Barron looks very, very motivated, and he alone could take a team to a very high level. So I'm not discounting basketball either.
Yeah, his motivation is something that I haven't seen out of a college player up close, and he guaranteed that their name will be called on Selection Sunday. That remains to be seen. He's got one more year to do it, so we will see. Jordan, Rich, thank you for joining us today. This is Griffs Sports.
And welcome back to Griffs Sports. We are going to take a quick commercial break now, and when we come back, Brandon and I will recap everything that happened over the break in the world of Griffs Sports.
If you can sit with me, imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read. 'Cause every kid across the nation deserves a book to read, and we can make it happen right now.
No, I don't know what you've been told, but kids with books learn so much more.
So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child.
So let's join hands, book people unite.
Unearth hidden passion.
Come on, we'll have a good time.
Plant seeds of inspiration to motivate some magic.
To change the writing on the wall, writing on the wall.
Book can make a difference. One book can inspire a child. One book can be the first thing that helps to change a life.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Be the charming type. Take off your gloves and show what they hide. I'll let you cry if you close your eyes. I'll have an answer for your eyes. There goes my love. There goes my love. There goes my love, 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 love.
And we're back. This is Griffs Sports. And Brandon, let's now dive in to how the Griffs did while everybody was away on spring break.
Let's do it.
Let's start with men's lacrosse. And they ended the month of March on a bit of a sour note. They lost to MAC rival Marist 13-5. They also played against nationally ranked Syracuse at the time. Syracuse was ranked 9th. They lost that game 17-5. They returned home on April the 6th to play Siena. That's a rematch of the MAC championship game from last year. They lost in a blowout, 16-6. A bit of good news in that game, freshman Billy Jacoby and sophomore Sam Connors each had their first career goals. Coach Mearns, in an attempt to get some kind of a spark, benched Alex Giovanetto, the sophomore goalie, in the third quarter, replaced him by senior Nick Carrasco. It will probably be Giovanetto getting the start this weekend in his usual place. And lastly, Vinny Gravino, the freshman attacker, was banged up in that one, appeared to hurt his right shoulder. He is listed as day-to-day and will probably play this weekend. The team's now 1-8 overall and 1-2 in MAC play.
Yeah, and losing Vinny Gravino is going to be tough for this team. We already seen him struggle to score enough to keep games close, but it's good to hear that he's doing really well. Well, now let's take a look at women's lacrosse now, as they had much more success lately. In the ending of March, they faced against St. Bonaventure when they won convincingly 18-3. And then in the next game, they faced Iona, where they won greatly 16-5. And then they continued their winning streak against Niagara at their field, winning 14-4. And then again at Manhattan, 16-4, where we saw sophomore Tori Quinn and senior Morgan Leonard score 12 points each in the last two victories. Wednesday today, they're going to face Siena, and they are 2-0 in the MAC and 9-3 overall. Kyle?
Well, Tori Quinn has been a machine for this team. It seems
Definitely.
every time we look at the box score, she is their leading scorer. Now let's hit the diamond and check out how Griffs softball has been doing. The end of March, they had some struggles. They were swept by Ohio University in a doubleheader down there on March 23rd. So they split a doubleheader with Mount St. Mary's on March the 30th, and their struggles continued into April. They were swept by the College of Charleston in South Carolina on April 2nd, shut out in both those games. In game one, they lost 11-0. That game was shortened to 5 innings due to the mercy rule. They also lost game two of that one, 7-0. They went on to split a doubleheader the next day with Charleston Southern. They were shut out again, another 5-inning game. They lost 13-0 in that one. Game two, though, the Bats finally broke out. They won 12-2. They got a good pitching performance, and it was third baseman Megan Cutta who led the team. She was 2 for 2 with 2 walks, 2 runs scored, and 6 RBI. They then went on to April 6th to split a doubleheader with Ryder. They lost the first game 5-0. It was another shutout. The team managed just 3 hits in that one. And then game two, again, they had some success. They won 9-7. And it was first baseman Katie Medina who led the team this time. She was 4 for 4 with 3 RBI in that one. But the Griffs really just had some bad pitching in this stretch. Jen Consul in the losses on that stretch, who pitched 8 1/3 innings, gave up 20 hits and 16 runs. She really struggled. Amanda Bond, another usually consistent pitcher, went 6.2 innings pitched in that one. She gave up 12 runs on just 10 hits. She struggled. And Corinne Schaas went 2 innings pitched, giving up 8 runs on 4 hits. Not good numbers. The pitching hasn't been so successful of late.
Yeah, they need a lot more consistency out of their lineup. We've seen them put big numbers on the scoreboard, but they're being held scoreless too many times, which puts unnecessary pressure on the pitching staff. That's really something they need to fix. Well, now it's springtime, and that means the Griffs golf team is back in action. Let's start at the winning Turner Townsend Invitational, where they had 12 plays out of 24 teams, where we saw Andrew Romano finish 30th overall. His final round was 80. Next, in the Rhodey Invitational, they had 6 plays out of 10 teams. Romano and senior Michael Carrick tied 8th overall. Carrick had a final round 77, which was a Canisius best.
Yeah, good performance from Michael Carrick. And Andrew Romano was a very talented golfer. As a freshman, he should be leading the charge for the Griffs for a long time. Now, let's wrap up with baseball. We saved them for last deliberately. We'll get to that in a second. They lost 2 out of 3 games to St. Peter at home back in March. Then they went on to sweep Iona. They then went on the road to face Cornell. They won that game 14-5. That was the beginning of their April schedule. Brett Siddall was one of 5 players with multi-hit games in that one. He was 2 for 6 with 3 RBI and 2 runs scored. The bullpen was dominant in that game as well, giving up just 1 run in 6 innings pitched. Then the Griffs failed a little bit. They were swept by Ryder on the road at Ryder. Game 1 of a doubleheader to start the series, they lost 4-3. Garrett Courtwright had a solid pitching performance. He went 8 innings, giving up just 4 runs, 3 of them earned, and second baseman Jose Torralba drove in 2 runs to lead the Griffs' offensive charge. Then game 2, they lost again. This one was 10-7. They got a bit more offense, but the pitching wasn't quite there. Devin Stewart went 3 innings, giving up 7 runs on 9 hits. Ryder scored the first 5 runs of the game, and that really got them going. First baseman Jimmy Lupins led the charge. He had 1 hit and 3 RBI. Then they went on to lose Game 3 on the next day, and Alex Godzak got the start. He went 5 2/3 innings pitched, giving up 3 runs on 3 hits. Catcher Brooklyn Foster led them offensively. He drove in the only earned run. He was 1 for 2. Griffs are now 4-5 in MAC play, 20-12 overall. And Brandon, the reason we saved them for last is the pitcher we just talked about, Alex Godzak. He did something pretty special at the end of March. Tell us about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Godzak had a no-hitter against Iona March 29th. It was a doubleheader game, well, the second doubleheader game of the evening, as he pitched 7 innings, had 6 strikeouts and 2 walks in the first inning. Ron Pierce and John Fitzsimmons each pitched 1 inning. The trio retired the final 26 batters. It was the first no-hitter since May 2nd of 1993, where Joe Marmot, versus Siena in 7 innings. And then another one in May 2nd, 1986, where Mike Viv had no hitter against Buffalo. Kyle?
Definitely a rare occurrence, and I got to talk to Alex earlier today about his accomplishment and how he chose to play baseball here at Canisius College.
Alex Godzak, freshman pitcher, number 16.
Tell us how you decided to play baseball at Canisius.
Well, I definitely wanted to stay someplace close to home. I'm only about 2.5 hours away, so the fact that it's close by, was really a major part. I came up here for an overnight. Back last October, the team treated me well. They're a good bunch of guys, so the team chemistry really helped me deciding to come here.
What do you think of your teammates so far now that you've had some time to play with them?
They're a great bunch of guys. They're always joking around, always having a good time on and off the field. But we know when it comes to game time and we get on the field, we're battling right from the start, to try to win back a MAC championship.
What kind of adjustments from pitching in high school to pitching here have you had to make with a different level of competition?
Definitely the competition's a lot better. In high school you could get away with pitches down the middle of the plate or missing your spots, but now once you're in college you got to have command, you got to know where the ball's going, and being able to do that is going to lead to success in the future.
What about school-wise? What are you majoring in?
Sports management.
Okay. And how have you kind of adjusted to playing a Division I sport and still trying to manage school week?
That's all about time management is what you got to do. Any free time you have, just try to get some work done, in between practices, in between games. By getting work done, you're going to have success in the classroom, and, you're not going to be busy. If once you're traveling, you're not going to be swamped with work or anything. So definitely time management is going to be huge.
What's your favorite thing about Canisius so far?
Probably baseball. Just baseball's been in my life, since I was about 10, 12 years old, and hopefully it stays in my life for a while.
So what's kind of your goal for the rest of the season and then overall in your 4 years here?
Goal for this season is definitely to win a MAC championship, especially freshman year. We got a talented group of guys here, so, being able to win a MAC championship this year would be great. For the future, hopefully, God willing, there's a chance that could go, at a higher level. But, that's all going to be determined in the next couple of years.
What about that no-hitter you threw just a couple weeks ago? What were you thinking during that game?
I wasn't trying to think too much about it. I was just trying to hit my spots, get your outs. My defense played great behind me the whole game. I know I missed my spot, they put a ball in play. I know my defense is going to be there right behind me, to grab it up for me. So definitely having a good defense behind you and being able to look at your pitches was big in that game.
When did you realize you had a no-hitter going?
I think probably in the 5th or 6th inning is when I started to kind of realize that I got something special going here. Hopefully I can finish it off.
Are you disappointed that you got pulled in the 7th?
Every person wants to finish, have their own, complete game no-hitter, but, the important thing is we got the win, we got the sweep of a conference series, so, that was most important.
That was freshman starting pitcher Alex Godzak, who should have a very promising career with the Golden Griffins. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Brandon and I will take you around the MAC.
This is #Griffs Sports. Stay with us.
welcome back to hashtag Griff Sports, and Brandon, it is now time to go around the MAC.
Definitely. Now let's start with men's lacrosse scores. As we see, Marist and Delaware had a game, as Delaware came out there by just 1 point. Then Detroit against Manhattan, where Detroit won 14-8. Then Canisius lost 6-16 against Siena, and then VMI lost to Jacksonville 13-8.
Now let's take a look at the men's lacrosse standings.
And as we see in the standings, Jacksonville is 4-0, taking the one-game lead against Marist. And while we see VMI having no wins and also Manhattan having no wins, Canisius in the middle of the pack with 1-2.
Now let's take a look at women's lacrosse. They had just a few more games on the men's side. April 3rd, Canisius beat Niagara big 14-4. Of course, Iona beat Manhattan, another blowout, 16-9. And Fairfield over Marist in a squeaker, 9-8. Now let's take a look at the April 6th scores from women's lacrosse. And on that day, we had Canisius over Manhattan, 16-4, another blowout game. Marist over Siena, 13-4, and Fairfield, 18-7. Not a lot of competition for women's lacrosse this week. Let's take a look at the standings now. Canisius is undefeated on top of the standings, 3-0. Niagara on the bottom, 0-3. It's nice to see that in the standings, even if it is early in the season.
Yeah. Now let's take a look at baseball scores. As we see, Bryan Siena had a game, as Bryan came out beating Siena convincingly 3-0, and Ryder beat Canisius 3-0 also. Niagara had a tough game against Iona, winning 2-1. St. Peter's and Fairfield had a game where we saw St. Peter's won by squeaker 2-1. And then Manhattan versus Marist, as we saw another game going 2-1 in the favor of Manhattan. Now let's go to the standings. As we see at the top is Ryder, which is 5-1, and we see Canisius at the lower bottom of the pack being 4 wins and 5 losses.
Well, Canisius is at 20-10 overall, so despite that poor MAC record, they're still doing okay.
Yeah.
And baseball, those were series scores, so it was Iona with a sweep and 2-1, a 2-1 advantage in the series. Now, let's go back and take a look at softball now. Fairfield had a doubleheader against Niagara. They swept them 2-0. Iona swept Siena 2-0. Ryder and Canisius split their doubleheader, as did Marist and Seton Hall. And Manhattan beat St. Peter's 2-0. Let's take a look at a few more softball scores. Manhattan swept their doubleheader against Iona. Marist swept Fairfield. And Siena and Seton Hall played just one game. It was a very high-scoring affair. Seton Hall won that one 14-10. And now let's wrap it up by looking at the standings for MAC softball. Manhattan, undefeated, 4-0, is on top. See Canisius just 1-1 near the bottom. Siena and Niagara both at 0-2, round things out again. Niagara in last place. We'll certainly take that. And now let's take a look ahead at what the Griffs will face this weekend. And we will start off with Griffs lacrosse. We see the women's lacrosse team plays at Fairfield Saturday at 11 a.m. Men's lacrosse plays at the same time at Manhattan. And then men's lacrosse will play Monday night here at the Dembski Sports Complex against Binghamton.
And now the Griffs baseball schedule looks like this, as they will face Gannon in an exhibition on Sunday at 1 p.m. and then against Buffalo on Wednesday at 3 p.m.
Griffs softball will be playing this weekend. They have a doubleheader against Marist on Saturday, and they'll also have a doubleheader at home against Robert Morris on Tuesday in the evening. First game at 3 p.m., second game at 5.
In other Griffs sports, the golf team has a Detroit Invitational on Friday and Saturday, and then rowing has the Kent's Cup on Friday and Sunday.
And we're about to end the show now, and we've got just a few quick things for you before we do. Billy Barron was named the CollegeInsiders.com mid-major MVP after a spectacular season for the Golden Griffins. Congratulations to Billy. Griffs synchronized swimming will no longer be a Division I sport. They've been downgraded to a club sport. We will have much more on that for you next week.
That's tough.
And finally, in Griffs rowing, the Varsity 8 was named the MAC Crew of the Week. Congratulations to them and their success. And now, one very last thing. Brandon, who is this week's Golden Performer of the Week?
Well, it could be no other than Alex Gozak, who had a no-hitter against Iona in that game. It was a very strong showing by him, playing 7 innings, having 6 strikeouts and 2 walks against Iona. And he's looking to be a very strong competitor throughout the season.
Yeah, he's been great as a freshman, and we look for him and the team to have continued success.
Yeah.
This has been hashtag Griff Sports. We'll be back with you in 1 week to recap you on what's going on this coming weekend. I'm Kyle Ferrara.
And I'm Brandon Rudd.
Be with us next week. This is #Griff Sports.
See you next week.